Welcome to Unscripted with Marilyn Morales. Today, my co-host is Jeanette Mendez. Good morning, Jeanette.
Good morning, Marilyn. How are you? Nice to see you
Good.
again. I'm Jeanette. I'm her friend and a school psychologist. And we are here with Monique Klosowski, better known as MamaMo. I'm going to read a little bit about her so everybody is aware of who she is. She is an international motivational speaker and two-time best-selling author, lover of life, of nature, spiritual alchemist, herbal practitioner, and canine nutritionist to the stars. MamaMo is passionate about transforming women's lives through her trauma-informed feminine embodiment coaching, where she takes broken women through an immersive healing journey using a combination of movement, breath work, energy healing, mindfulness, and meditation and inner work to unlock their inner power to break through their limiting beliefs, developing clarity in their lives' vision, and cultivating confidence in their self-worth. MamaMo believes she has not come to heal you, but to guide you towards your own ability to heal yourself.
Wow, fantastic. Let us welcome MamaMo.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm so excited to be here with you ladies today.
Thank you for sharing your morning with us. We're very excited too, because I know you. Jeanette is meeting you for the first time. So just the many wonderful things that you do, I would love for you to share with my viewers your path, because your path has not been easy. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you for Unscripted, because the show is about showing people the struggles that we have, but more importantly, how to heal from them and how to move forward from them. So, MamaMo, share with my viewers the earliest memory you have of a struggle that you had and overcame.
The earliest memory of a struggle that I overcame, my whole life has been a struggle. From the moment I was born, I came into this world in trauma. My mom almost lost her life, almost lost my life, and then through the years from being raised by an abusive father and being a part of foster care system and the group homes and the abuse that goes on behind the scenes. But, I think one of my earliest memories in childhood is really memories of fear. Growing up in a household where I didn't have a voice in, my father raised us out of fear. There was no love. There was no you did a good job, encouraging words. It was tiptoeing around, being in a constant state of fight or flight or fear, or afraid of being yelled at or hit, or, what kind of mood is he going to come in today? And, I'm the oldest out of, a lot. I have a huge family. There's 7 siblings between, me, and I'm the oldest. And so my mother dipped out on me when I was super young. She just couldn't handle it and handle life. She has dissociative attachment disorder. And so she doesn't emotionally attach to anyone or anything. And so, I grew up where my mom told me later on in life, when she became a part of my life, that, she never held me. She blamed me for my father leaving, and you see pictures of her holding me and she's holding a bottle, but she wouldn't even look at me, And so I went through life feeling unseen, unheard, disappearing in the background, not feeling like I had a voice. And that carried on throughout, my adulthood as well. I got into severely abusive relationships, mentally and physically. And I carried on those trauma patterns even after I had my own children. And it was really coming from a place of not knowing my worth, not believing that I had any worth. My dad used to say things to me like, "You're nothing more than a pretty face. You'll never be worth anything more than lying on your back." I was expected to be perfect in every single way, and I could never live up to those expectations. And so that just carried on because I didn't know encouragement. I didn't know love. I just knew how to shut my mouth, disappear in the background, and try not to make anything known to anybody about anything. I had a conversation the other day with a friend of mine, and it was brought up, that growing up in a household where, you just disappear in the background is, afraid to do anything, to make any noise, to make an impact, to, just disappearing. I spent my entire life just trying to disappear and not be seen, because any attention that was brought to me by anybody, I was sexually abused by my grandfather from the age of 3 to 14. So that is another thing, that you just disappear. You learn to, that's just like my entire life was just not to be seen or heard.
Right.
So,
let me ask you before we move on to adulthood, because some people may have gone through this themselves in their childhood, or may know a child, or seeing signs like this. I had a guest recently who talked about the signs that you should watch out for, if you're seeing this in a child, right? So I'd like to ask questions about that. So you said you were the oldest of 7, right? So, wow. And that means all your siblings experienced the very same thing. Everybody was in the same household together? Yes?
So there's many years between us. I have one full-blooded sister. The rest of them, my father got married several times. He had several wives. They,
Gotcha.
the only difference between me and my sister and the rest of my siblings is, when their moms had enough and they finally left my father, they took my siblings with them. I didn't have a mom. I was stuck with my father consistently, and so, he made some bad choices growing up. My father was a biker. He went to jail a couple of times. I had my door kicked in from the cops. I remember, no matter what. So if my father couldn't take care of us, then I was either sent into my grandparents, where there was abuse there. That's where the sexual abuse was, or a group home, or the foster care system. And the abuse that's rampant in the foster care system and in groups home is just, it's mind blowing what goes on. But to be able to see, the clues in a child,
right. So that's it. What would somebody have seen in you that should have triggered somebody to say this child is going through something at home?
And along those lines, I also want to ask, when you're talking about that, when did you, or how did you realize that the life you were living was not a normal life?
Oh, I talk about that. I realized that the life that I was living wasn't a normal life when I finally was allowed to go spend the night in other households. You grow up in that environment and you're used to that. You don't know any different. So you don't know what you don't know. You don't realize that everybody else doesn't live like that. You know what I mean? I didn't know any different. And then here I am. Now I'm, grade school age, between 8 to 10 years old. I've lived my entire life like this. And now all of a sudden I'm going over to other people's houses and realizing their parents don't scream and yell at them. They support them. You know what I mean? I started playing instruments. I'm very musically inclined. I started playing the violin in 3rd grade. And so that was like an extracurricular activity that I got to do that got me out of my home. But I started to realize, my dad didn't participate in the majority. He wasn't really there for my concerts. He didn't come to my track meets. He wasn't at my swim teams. There wasn't, I didn't have a support system. And so that, I just tried not to. Everybody knew what was going on. My neighbors, my dad had a reputation. My neighbors knew, the school system knew, the courthouses knew, the judges knew who my dad was. The Garcia family was very well known because of, the nature of who my father was. And so it was always, I don't think that it was particularly that somebody saw something. I think that it was just that everybody knew who my father was. And because they knew who my father was and the things that we dealt with, because I come from a little nowhere town in Wisconsin where everybody knows everybody. My family grew up there. All of my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, everybody is from the same town. And so growing up in that, a type of an environment and everybody knowing who my father was, I can remember being a teenager and sneaking out of my house and the cops dropping me off a block up from my house. And they were like, now, Miss Garcia, are we going to get a phone call tonight? Because they knew that if something happened, the neighbor's probably going to call the cops, or, you know what I mean? They would rather see me get into the house safely, like, can you get in home safely? Like, it was just something that I grew up with that everybody knew. So it wasn't like signs. I'm sure they saw the signs. I remember lying one time when, my dad hit me and I had a mark on my eye. Everybody knew that my dad hit me. You know what I mean? But in our household, it was like, you don't tell on your family. What goes on behind closed doors is what it stays here. Like, you are a horrible person if you rat out your family members. It doesn't matter what it is. You know what I mean? So going out there and talking about things like that, you just didn't do that.
That's
you
part
don't
of the abuse. That's part of the abuse when they say that, is because they want to keep you quiet. So that's part of what happened.
The manipulation.
Yeah, the manipulation. But was there anybody at the school? Did anybody outside of your family ever question you?
You know what it was also, that back then things were a little different also when it came to child protective services.
Okay.
I remember lashing out for the first time. They had something called the 9 line that the school had given me, and it was like a 1-800-999-9999. And back then we had the pay phones. And I can remember for the first time standing up to my dad while he was like wailing on my sister. And I was probably like 8 years old at the time. And I remember standing in the hallway, like screaming at him. And then of course he turned around and came at me. And I remember being like, this is enough. And I remember calling the 9 line, and then they got, DSS involved. And then we went to court. I was like, oh my gosh, finally we went into this home. I remember being in this home with this wonderful woman. We made cookies. I'll never forget it. And then we went to court. And it was like, they were like, well, she's doing good in school and she seems to be a happy, healthy young lady. And so, then we went back into my dad. And then that was like, back into the,
right.
And
because
then it was like, and then you're like, okay, well, here I am. I had the guts to say something. And look, now I'm in 10 times more trouble because now I got sent back to my dad and I said something and I made it out to be, and then it was him being like, see, it's not that bad. You make things worse. Do you know how I had to take off of work? Like, everything was my fault. And so,
yeah, listen, I find it remarkable that you were able to do all those things, that you took the instruments, that you were doing well in school, that you joined all these other things as a young girl, right? Your thing was safety, to get you out of the house. You joined everything you possibly could, but it worked against you, unfortunately.
Well, I was in my, it still, I don't know, to this day, my dad and I we're not really on speaking terms, but like, even to this day, like, I think about, my dad held me to a higher standard. I was always super smart. I was a straight A student, but that was my way of disappearing. My sister was very complicated. She had chemical imbalances. She used to have adrenaline rushes where she was abusive, drinking. Like, my mom did drugs when she was pregnant with my sister. And so my sister had to go through that after she was born, the withdrawals and things, and it affected her chemically and hormonally. And so like, she was like the problem child. And so I was held up to this standard. Now, like, I had to be the example for the rest of my siblings. I had to live to this like state of perfection, whether it was taking care of my siblings or being straight A's in school, or the only way that I didn't get that negative attention was by being the perfect child, is disappearing. That's how I disappeared in the background, because I knew that if I could excel at these things, then I was the good child. You know what I mean? Like, that's where my people pleasing came from. Everything came from perfection. I knew what my dad wanted when he wanted it, whether it was a drink, a food, anything to keep you in a good mood and smiling, so that it wasn't a negative, abusive environment. Like, the only positive affirmations I ever got was when I lived to a state of perfection. Because if not, then I was never going to be more than a pretty face. I was never going to be worth anything more than lying on my back. Like, those are words that my father spoke over me, like, religiously, that stuck with me for the rest of my life, that I had to try to battle to get out of.
That must have been so exhausting.
She's exhausted just talking about it.
I am. Right? It is, but it's amazing. Everybody has this moment in your life. I think everybody comes to a turning point. It's usually something that happens within their life, a life or death situation, the death of a family member, a divorce, something happens in your life. For me, I went through abuse. I married men who were just like my father. Like my second husband beat the snot on me and beat the snot out of my kids. I didn't know any different. If you were nice to me, I wondered if you showed me affection and love and were kind, that was uncomfortable. I thought you wanted something from me. Why would you be nice to me without? I could deal with the abuse. I didn't know any different. That was my state of normalcy.
Yeah,
And so you carry that on, not knowing any better, and then continue to wonder, why do these things happen to me? I'm a good person. I'm a good human being. I love, I give from, that's all I ever did was give. And so then all of a sudden for me, it wasn't the abuse. It wasn't my ex-husband trying to, kill me. It wasn't all of these things that I went through, because that was my state of normalcy. All of a sudden for me, it took a cancer diagnosis.
And that was my next question. What was it?
Yeah.
What was that pivotal moment when you said enough is enough? And I'm done with this normal and I need something else. So it was your cancer diagnosis.
I went through, my second divorce. I ended up signing my rights over to my youngest child. I went through horrible court cases. I had very bad PTSD. My ex-husband tried to murder me because he was cheating on me and I was going to leave him. And I'll just never forget that day. My daughter, she's got PTSD from that. Like, he literally beat me within an inch of my life that day. And so that wasn't my turning point. I lost my kids. And it wasn't like, when I say I lost my kids, it wasn't like I was a drug addict and lost my kids. Court system is not set up for a single mother, who just went through abuse. He had, our household was a family house. It was a nightmare situation. And so I did what I thought was in the best interest for my kids. And so here I am. I was in Wisconsin. I did not have my kids at the time. And there was an empty hole within me. And then I got a cancer diagnosis. And it was like, what am I doing with my life? What is it? If I am not here tomorrow, if something happens to me, what is going to happen to my kids?
Right.
At the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like,
is that when you started to feel self-worth? Like, literally, is that when you were like, I'm valuable?
I started going, I went through treatment. I realized, there's no such thing as good cancer. You know what I mean? But I had a type of, I had stage 2 endometrial cancer. And it was like, I knew I wasn't going to die. But it also was that, like, I only have one life to live. And what am I going to do with this? And what about my kids? So I left everything in Wisconsin. I left the relationship that I was in. I left my family members. I literally packed everything that I could into my truck. And I came to the East Coast, where my kids are, where I live today. And was like, I have no idea what direction in my life I'm going to go, but I know that I'm going to do everything in my power to bring a state of normalcy for myself and for my kids. And so really what happened was, I started, I've always worked in mental health field. I worked with traumatic brain injury clients. I worked with schizophrenics. I always worked in the healthcare field. So I always worked in, I was a senior case manager for the Division of Social Services. So I knew those sorts. I knew what I needed to do as far as like healing my body. And then I realized that I wanted to do it naturally. Like, I didn't trust the medical care system, to be honest with you. And so I was like, I'm going to heal my body. And so I started really deep diving into plant medicine, into holistic naturopathic healing. I really started immersing myself in how to live the best life that I possibly could. And during that journey is when I really realized that the root core issues of everything that I was dealing with health-wise stemmed from unresolved trauma that needed to heal. And until I dealt with those deep, dark places within my psyche, within my spirit, within my body, I was never going to be able to heal myself. And so I started doing that shadow work. I started reading every psychology book, every mental, anything that I could possibly get my hands on, and immersing myself into healing this broken parts of my childhood that had carried on, because I knew that I needed to break that cycle. And the only
Right.
person that could do it was me.
Right.
And I love that you were reading about how to help you and not how to fix other people or help them, that it was all about you.
Right.
And I
That you
think that's
acknowledge
really
that.
where it begins, like you have to really, at the end of the day, the hardest pill I had to swallow was taking responsibility for my choices. Because at the end of the day, they were my choices. I could blame it on my ex-husbands. I could blame it on my parents. I could blame it on the school system. I could blame it on the really messed up court systems. I could blame it on so many different people, and I would be valid in that.
Right.
And
That's right.
nobody would blame me for that. But at the end of the day, I made choices. I put my children in harm. I made choices. I was homeless. I lived in women's shelters. I drug my kids through hell. At the end of the day, those were choices that I made. Did I know any better? No. But it really took me doing that inner work and stop blaming everybody else and saying, took part in my life and made those choices. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes.
That's right.
It's
Listen, we
taking the
talk about this. We talk about
Yeah.
this all the time, right? Illness, because I think it's significant that you had endometrial cancer, right? And you were going through sexual abuse and feelings of self-worth. And when you
Yep.
look at your chakras, right? Your sacral chakra, the chakras that are aligned with those issues are where the cancer emerged. Those of us that work in the energy field know that illness begins outside before it hits your body, right? It starts there in your energy field, in the things that are happening to you. More importantly, in your perception of the things that happen to you. We have absolutely no control over things that happen to us, the people and what they do to us. The only thing we have control over is how we respond to those situations
Absolutely.
and what we do with them, which is what you so eloquently stated here. Is I stopped blaming everyone else, said I'm going to work on me and what I can do moving forward to make my choices, my perspective, and everything better. And that I'm going to teach this to my children, because your children was your driving force. You said it. I got cancer. What's going to happen to my kids if I'm not here tomorrow? Those were your whys. Your why was your children. And then you changed everything around. Was there someone that introduced you to these principles, or did you pick this up yourself reading?
I started picking. I've always had a connection to like the earth and natural ways. Like I talk about it in the chapters in the book that I've had a privilege to co-author in. I've always had a connection with the moon and a connection with nature, and I truly believe because it never asked anything in return. I could escape into the woods. I could escape into nature and into the plants, and I just felt the energy. It was my safe space. And so when I was going through those dark times and nature and gardening and plants
Being outdoors.
and being part of being outdoors in the sun, the moon, the stars, everything was there was a sense of spirituality that was there. And so, I didn't grow up in church. I used it as an excuse to get away. I was allowed to go to church camp. I was allowed to hang out with my friends that went to church. I went through the steps, but I never had like a personal relationship per se. And then in my 20s, I did mission work overseas. I went to Africa. I worked with the Tel ministries over in Europe and, tried to find my purpose in that as well in religion, but it was like there was always some sort of disconnect for me. I don't believe in organized religion. I believe, that's just my personal opinion. I believe God. I believe that there's a Jesus, but there's a connection with the earth for me that is more spiritual than I've ever experienced in a building somewhere. That's me. Not everybody believes that, but for me, like really leaning into that is where the love for plant medicine. And then when I started reading the connection and the way, like working in the medical industry and seeing how everybody's treated and put it, okay, well, you fit into these categories and check mark these boxes. So everybody that fits into this category is exactly the same. And with plant medicine and naturopathic medicine, we look at the whole constitution of the individual. You know what I mean? Everybody is different. Your journey is different. How you respond is different. You're genetically dispositioned to be different. And so I gravitated towards that. And through that, I started to learn about shadow work. I started to learn about healing yourself from an energy perspective. You know what I
Right.
mean? Taking movement, breath work, meditation, these times, those moments when to really, because really when you do that, for me, so like I have complex PTSD, and this is something that I always tell people: when you go through so much trauma, there is no moment where you achieve this like state of enlightenment where you're no longer on this healing journey. You're constantly, for the rest of your life, going to be on a healing journey. There's things that are going to come up within your life. It's recognizing those triggers before you react instead of respond. And so for me, when I start to feel that anxiety, when I start to think those self-deprecating thoughts, so I start to go backwards, I can pause and look within myself instead of looking at the environment, my husband, my kids. Why am I irritated? Why is everybody making me so mad today? I'm saying, what about this situation in this moment is making me feel this way? And then taking it back, where is this coming from? What belief do I have within me at this moment that is causing this reaction? And then stepping into that and pausing and going into a state of meditation and really digging deep down, and then taking that moment, and instead of being like, it's always like this, is it really always like this? Is he always like that? Talking about my husband. And it's like those times of reflection, and then you learn. And as you learn, those times of depression, anxiety, those triggers become a little bit less and a little bit less. And you learn to be patient and loving with yourself through the process, because it's a journey.
Wonderful. Being a fellow PTSDer, I get it. All of it. My question is, what if you had any advice to give to that little girl that was you? What would you tell her?
Man, that's so hard. Because there's so many things that I wish that I could go back and tell her, that she's safe, that she's loved, that like it's not always going to be like this. But I don't think that I would have believed it. Like it's such a touchy subject.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it is, I would love to say to find somebody safe that you can feel that you can trust. But that was so difficult for me, because I couldn't trust the court system. I couldn't trust. I felt like I couldn't trust anybody. I didn't have family members. It was, like after the abuse or whatever, it was like things were just always swept under the rug, and you just learned just not to talk about it and to just move on. Like so it's such a touchy subject.
You know what?
Because children suffer, and the systems that are in place that are supposed to create a safe environment, it's not as safe as we would like it to be. And it's something that I would love to helped create that. That's the whole reason why I, became a senior case manager for the Division of Social Services. That's the whole reason why I became a court advocate, to try to make changes. And it's just not set up for that.
Right.
And
I'd like to tell that little girl to stay strong, that you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And then she'd remember, stay strong. I'm going to keep moving forward. No matter what happens to you, you're going to be okay. Now, she didn't know that then, and it was going to take a long time. And these journeys are meant for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you can turn around and find people in the same position as you, and you're able to share with them how to get out of that, how to move forward, not to get out of it, but how to move forward from that, giving some tools. So some of the tools that you mentioned were meditation, right? Being out in nature. So if those are the things that people can do right now, right? Let's say somebody, meditation was always difficult for me, right? Because of the person in your head that doesn't stop talking, right? But walking outside always helped me. Just go for a walk, right? So that's a tool that everybody can use today. So if you're going through something, whether it's as bad as what Monique did, or just a simple argument or something that just got your spirit all in unrest, going for a walk is key. Is there any other thing that you can suggest as a tool in the toolbox that somebody can use today?
Breath work. Really doing, part of meditation. I have a hard time too because my brain is always like going a million different places. For me, it's pausing and breathing. A lot of times we don't breathe when we're having anxiety, when we're having, we're going through something or feeling these emotions. Part of that's part of shoving it all down. And if you can just take a moment to pause and just to breathe through it. I have gotten through so many tough situations just pausing and breathing, because it does something to your psyche. It creates a balance back within your hormones. You're just taking that moment. If you can't get outside, if you can't breathe, if you can't just take a moment just to close your eyes and to go inward, even in all of the chaos that's going on around you, and to just breathe and to love yourself, because really at the end of the day, all of your healing comes from within. I could give you all the tools that you could possibly need. I could teach you somatic healing. I can teach you to get up and to move your body and to do the breath work and to do the meditation and to do all of that. But if you don't take the time to go inward and to really learn yourself and to love yourself through whatever you have to go through, it doesn't matter anything that you do. It really has to come within. It's not about blaming everybody else or pointing fingers or this. You can't take back what happened yesterday. You can't change it. You can't live in those moments of those trauma. You only have right now. And right now, sometimes all you have is yourself. And to learn to love and to be comfortable in your skin and to love yourself is the greatest gift that you could ever give on your healing journey.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that. Absolutely. So Monique, now what are you doing to help people with their trauma, PTSD? I hear that you have a coaching program. Tell us about that.
I do. So I named it, the name of the program is called Rebirthed. And it's all about, you have to become undone within, rewrite all of those history that happened. You can't go back, like I said. Right. So this healing journey is an immersive healing journey about learning to love yourself and to be comfortable within your own skin and to be patient and loving with yourself. It's somatic healing. It's learning how to heal your mind, body, and your spirit. It's energy healing. It's using, music as a form of healing. It's learning breath work, meditation, and really, really going to those deep, dark places within your mind that we regress and that we just shove down, because until you really get to those root core issues within your body, like you hold that within you. That's what, we were talking earlier, talking about my cancer. One of the things that I struggled with was having a voice, and I have, autoimmune disease. So, and it's all around my voice box. So I have Hashimoto's. I have a 6 millimeter pituitary adenoma. All of it's hormonal. And it's all from being in a state of fight or flight for most of my life. And so it's learning how to not live in that state and to love yourself. And I'm not the healer. I'm here to give you the tools that you need and to guide you along the way, because all of it's within you. There's nothing that I can do or anybody can do. There's no magic pill. There's no magic journey. I can guide you through it. I can hold your hand and say, I've been through this. I know that it really, really sucks, but here are the tools that helped me to get to be where I am today. Let me be your guide. Let me hold the light for you, because I know that you're in a very, very deep, dark place right now. Let me hold this light that you're not capable of carrying right now, and let's go through this journey together. And that's really what it's about, is because everybody has an answer. Everybody has a 7-step program. Everybody has like some sort of, this diet and you got to do this, but every person is different. Everybody's journey is different. And what works for somebody else may not work for somebody else. So I'm here just to be a guide, to love you through it, to be patient, for you to call, to be a part of your life, to say, it sucks. And I know it sucks and it's not easy. And I'm not going to pretend that it is. Healing is not easy. but at least you don't have to do it alone.
Amen.
I'm here for you.
And you're taking on new clients, correct?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
I am
So
taking
how can
on
they
new
get a hold
clients.
of you?
Yes,
everybody
they
how
can
they
get a hold of me on Facebook. So my Facebook, I see it scrolling down here on the bottom. Please excuse the Monique Garcia. That was many, many, many moons ago. You can find me as MamaMo. Everybody knows me as MamaMo. I am the mother of many. I just have a caretaker nature. And so MamaMo Klosowski, all you have to do is plug it into Facebook. You will find me there. You can message me there. I will have my website up. Hopefully it's being designed. It should be launching by the end of the month. So I will have a website for you to go to from there. But right now, just get a hold of me on Facebook. That's where I'm active. I'm getting ready to launch a Facebook support group for women that we're just going to pour into each other. And I'm going to have guest speakers and just really teach you all of those tools that you need, from the breathing practices to the meditations to, books that you can really dig deep into and to find that divine. I specialize in working with women. I also specialize in hormone health. So a lot of the things that women go through, especially as we get older, are attached to our hormones as well. So there's going to be, teaching about hormone health in there as well, because that's big for us, especially as we age and get older and our bodies are changing.
Yeah, so we know. We know.
And I hear there's something about a dog or something. A dog?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Let's go.
I never bring this up, and it's so funny because it's such an incredible thing about my life. So my husband and I have a world famous breeding and training program. We have tapped into Hollywood and been very, very, very blessed in that. And so, we own Sayori, Brandy the pit bull from Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She had a second movie that was just released in October from Bloomhouse Productions, which is Run Sweetheart Run. She has a third movie that's supposed to come out this year. It keeps getting pushed back. It's called Black Flies. It's a thriller. It's based off of a book. And we just got a phone call the other day for a possibility for a fourth movie that she's going to be in. And so we have our breeding and our training program. They're American Pit Bull Terriers. It's what we specialize in. And we also have a raw diet line. I have a canine nutrition line, all organic, sustainably sourced, right out of the farms from New Jersey, literally from the butcher to the processing plant. It doesn't get any fresher than that. So it's a raw diet. I have a canine nutrition line, an herbal canine nutrition line that has 3 different types of treats: a calming treat, a joint support treat, and a digestive health treat. I also have a canine CBD line as well. And so that is kind of like our little side thing that we do. We love dogs. We advocate for the American Pit Bull Terrier and have just really, really been blessed to be able to have that platform to tap into that market. And so, it's been a wild ride, to be honest. If you would have told me 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when I was basically living out of my truck and homeless, that I would be walking red carpets and going to the Oscars and rubbing shoulders with Brad Pitt and you know what I mean? I would have laughed in your face. And that's what I mean. Anything is possible. You never know. And this is, I just had a friend of mine the other day that passed away. He took his life. And it just reminded me of how precious it is and how many of us, we think that there isn't light at the end of the tunnel. And I truly, truly believe that, especially with men. I specialize in women, but I think men go and spend so much time alone and don't get the healing that they need, because they're supposed to be that toxic masculinity that, and so he took his life. But just think, if I would have given up, I was very suicidal. I attempted suicide twice. And so if I would have given up, imagine what I could have missed out on in the rest of my life and my healing journey, what my kids would have missed out on, the adventures that I've been blessed to be a part of, and the life that I live now. There is hope. There is hope. And I promise you that, those days that suck, and I know I still struggle too, it's not the end of the road. I promise. If you can just take one day at a time and learn to go deep within and to love yourself, because that's really where it all begins.
Now, Monique, I also ask everyone that's on the show, how do you define success? And you just talked about all these wonderful things that have happened. But how does Monique actually define success?
I have been, since I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I have like been deep in, and there's so many incredible things that I could possibly say, and you know, all of them could be incredible, but really at the end of the day, success is to find peace and love in the chaos of life, because we all are going to have struggles. Life is going to have it doesn't matter how much money I have, it doesn't matter the success that I have within my life, it doesn't matter all of those things. To me, being successful is learning to have peace and love despite the chaos that goes on around me. That to me is success.
Oh, thank you. That's beautiful. Jeanette, any final thoughts?
No, you're wonderful, and I'm glad you're here. It was meant for you to be here. You know, as always, you know, we do go through our things, and it is for one reason or the other, and obviously yours is to help others through their journey. So thank you.
Thank you. You know, I never talked about this for so many years. And so, like, to be able to know, you know, for me to be able to, let me spit it out, to be able to turn around, I feel like that is the greatest gift that I could ever give. It's my responsibility now that I'm never going to come out completely the other side, but because I've been able to be on this healing journey and have been able to find peace and love and be able to love myself and to be able to heal from a lot of these things within my life and to live a productive, healthy life, you know, I believe that it's my responsibility to turn around and hold my hand out and say, you know, I know you're lost in the dark. I think that's what it's all about. To find your you know, your message in your mess, to find the purpose in your pain. You know, I think that's really at the end of the day where you make the impact, and all of that healing becomes worth it. When you can say, when you see yourself within somebody else and am able to relate so that they don't feel alone in this world, because I felt alone for so long. You're not alone. We're here. I'm here. Just reach out.
MamaMo, thank you for being a guest on my show. Everybody, follow her on Facebook, reach out, and if you're struggling, reach out. She's got the tools to help you get through. All right, and have a great day, and I will see you next time.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gabrielle Morales, and I am a recruitment coordinator for Be The Match. My journey with Be The Match actually began when I was only 9 years old. At that point, my 7-month-old baby sister was diagnosed with an extremely rare form of leukemia. Through the Be The Match registry, we were able to find a matching donor for my sister. And although a few months later, we lost her, her cancer was cured. Our family is so thankful for the additional months that we had with my sister. And ever since then, I've made a promise to myself to dedicate my life to helping children just like Isabella and helping families like ours by continuing her legacy. Hence why I now work for Be The Match. I love what I do so much, and I'm able to spread awareness about the huge need for more donors on the registry, especially those of diverse backgrounds. There is currently a huge disparity within the registry for minority patients, and we need your help. It is so simple to save a life and to be put on the registry. You can visit izzy'slegacy.com or text Izzy's Legacy to the number 61474 to start the registration process to be on the Be The Match registry, to hopefully be a life-saving match for a searching patient in need.